Jacques Tati is one of the best directors of all time, often categorized in the same vein as Chaplin and Keaton. His films are heavily submerged in visual comedy and social commentary, yet he was able to stand on his own due to his unique style and focus on certain themes. And unlike his contemporaries who began within the silent era, Tati's films were born in an era of sound and took full advantage of its quality. And like with Chaplin's Tramp, Tati's Hulot is just as iconic of a character, appearing in almost every one of his films. But in essence, the most essential qualities that define Tati's work can be boiled down into these three elements.
If you turned the sound off for a Jacques Tati movie, it would be maybe interesting, but you'd be losing so much, maybe half of the humor.
As David Lynch said, sound is essential to a Tati experience. While you can obviously view one of his films with no sound at all, you lose out on a fundamental piece of the film. Most gags within his films wouldn't work with a bigger soundscape. They'd get mixed in with all the other sounds of the world and become atmospheric. But when you allow silence to have a presence, emphasizing distinct sounds, it allows for observation. Tati wants the viewer to become an active observer, paying attention to what's happening around them rather than focusing on a single thing. This concept also ties into most of the dialogue within his films. You almost never hear a full conversation, only certain words or phrases. It's quite accurate to real life. When you're walking down a street or at a social event, you occasionally hear a word or a sentence from someone that catches your attention. You don't know the full context behind the conversation, but it intrigues you just for that moment. And that's what Tati's dialogue recreates. He also implements mixed languages, having characters speak in English, French, and so on, making the dialogue less weighty and more meaningless. Even though sound is so vastly important within a Tati film, there's an impressive balance between the visuals and sound. The sounds and visuals presented in a Tati picture are near equal in importance. There's never a dependency over one or the other. All of this works together in order to create a unique viewing experience. Before Jacques Tati even made a film, he would perform at music halls as a profession. Then, World War II occurred, and he fought alongside the French till 1940, when the German-French armistice was enacted. It wasn't until after World War II finished that Tati began focusing on film as a career, starting with Jour De Fete. So why am I mentioning this? Well, Tati noticed the silent transformations that were occurring not only within France, but the world as a whole post-World War II. This observation inspired many of the themes and concepts embedded within his work. His first three films embody this influence the most. Jour De Fete follows a postman trying to compete with the technological advancements within America's postal service. Monsieur Hulot's Holiday is set in a post-World War II society, displaying many characters who exude its effects. Mon Oncle showcases the growing reliance on technology, modern architecture, and the destruction of old France. And these critiques aren't directed at technology or modern architecture at all, but rather the way people and society rely upon them. Now, this isn't the only topic of discussion Tati focused on. There's a number of consistent themes that appear within his work, from modernity, childlike creativity, technology, societal structures, and so on. And while a lot of these critiques that Tati brings to the table could come off as stubborn or cynical, they never do. It's always lighthearted and playful, poking fun at these things rather than being dismissive. Tati always found humor in everything, and accentuated it as a form of entertainment. Upon first glance, it seems weird to contribute Jacques Tati as an element that defines his own work. But unlike other directors, Tati plays a vital role within each one of his films. From The Postman, to Hulot, to even hosting the performance in Parade, Tati always played a character. But at the same time, he was never the main focus. He often blends in with the crowd or completely disappears for sections of his films. The main character is often the world and its supporting cast, and the amount of input Tati had with each element of his films should not be neglected. He would use non-actors to play characters. The drunk man in Playtime was an amateur filmmaker who wanted to show Tati some of his work. The group of women were all wives of American men at a military base in France. And because so many of these actors had little to no experience, Tati directed them in a unique way, mimicking every action and physique of each character. This also ties into his belief that physical performances deliver more to an audience than subtle ones. It's why almost all of his films are shot wide with the entire body and frame. Now you may have already realized this, but Tati was a perfectionist. He made 3 different versions of Monsieur Hulot's Holiday, updating the theme, changing many sounds, and finding the perfect runtime. He constructed many intricate buildings from Mon Oncle, leading eventually to Playtime's Tativille, an entire studio lot dedicated as a set. This included massive interiors and exteriors, ultimately forming the modernistic Paris where Tati's film took place. Tati spent over 3 years shooting Playtime, and financially took a hit after its failure at the box office. He lost his house, rights to his films, and filed for bankruptcy. And even though he was able to make 2 more films afterwards, he died a bitter man in 1982, a tragic loss for film. Jacques Tati is one of the best directors of all time, intrinsically weaving comedy and satire into his films, as well as utilizing sound to enhance the experience and guide the audience along. He was not only able to push the boundaries of comedy, but film itself. And even though the struggles Tati faced after Playtime were tragic, he'd never want anyone to focus on that. His films, at the end of the day, are about passing creativity and the essence of fun to a younger generation, hoping that they'll continue to exude that lighthearted and childlike nature that he embodied. Tati wanted the audience to see a little more poetry and joy in life, and knew that the true film began once you left the theater.